So here to talk through the statue park variation by Prasanna Seshadri. The Twilight rule actually has something in common with Minesweeper, although it works with opposite colors. So a white clue with a 4 means there will be 4 blackened squares around it. One thing to note is that this white cell will have to be able to extend somewhere out from this clue. And so if white were in these diagonal cells, the 4 remaining cells in black would actually pin this cell. And so a first deduction around this 4 on the side of a grid is that these cells are part of pentominoes. Same deduction is going to work out over here for this 4. And notice that with a black clue right above, this is not escape direction for that clue. This has to be part of a blackened cell, and the whites will come this way or this way out of the space. Around this black down below, 4 of these cells will be white. This is the opposite meaning of a Twilight clue. But there still needs to be a way this black connects to something else. And if this or this were the blackened squares, then this pentomino cell is on its own. So instead it has to be one of these orthogonally adjacent squares that will be black. And these two diagonally will have to be white. Over here you can make the same claims. These will have to be white. Just as we saw on the left, this 4 clue has one direction it can escape, but it's not going to escape down because that would pin 2 cells on their own. So this actually has to be marked in as white as another cell, so one of 2 options left. You'll notice a similar deductions now come up on both sides. This 3 clue, based off the information from the 4 clue below, now only has 3 cells left for this white cells to go into. That actually completes this pentomino shape when we put it in by connectivity, marks off all these cells, and we get sort of this stage for this part of the grid. On this right side, we've got a white circle with a 3 that needs 3 black cells near it. Put those into the grid. Notice that we can't take this cell because it would make a hexamino. We have a choice of 2 cells here which will be adjacent to this, but there's already an n pentomino in the grid, so this will be a p. And I'm just going to mark the shapes we have for tracking. And with p and n filled in, we now have a clue like this. It's going to have to take cells coming across. This 5 clue can take 1 more up here, but can't take 2 more, so we'll always have to take this cell, and taking that cell finishes an I pentomino, puts in this, so this is a good start for the grid. These white cells have to stay connected, so this is going to have to come up. If this kept going up, it would form another I, so we'll always take at least this cell, and then it has an option. It's going to be a V or a Y. But we can mark these cells in effectively. Around this 4 clue in black, we have 4 white cells already marked, so they're going to be 1 more white cell and then 3 in black. If this were the white cell, we'd make a 2x2 box, which will put another P into the grid, so this is the first of those cells I can identify. If the white is going to lead to a weird shape for this, that may leave other constraints, but right now I think this is my starting point and not more than this. Let's come maybe to the top left and let's start to think somewhat about these counts. So around this clue, there can be 2 black cells. They actually can't be these 2 because then we would form a U pinning another cell. So of these 2, this is always one of those. It's going to join into this, and then we're going to take 1 of these. But in taking that, we're going to make a 4 shaded cell space, and that means that this cell and this cell can't come together, that these are part of a group, but they're going to be a compact group. It also means I can't take this cell because that would lead to an issue with the overall count. So after I mark this cell off, I get that this cell has to be used. I could form a P or an F, but the P's already in the grid, so the F is the one that's in this corner. This cell will come out, this cell will come out, this will have to come out. That puts these in. Notice we're now in a case where this pentomino can't grow up to touch this because that would put 2 more whites around this and we can't get 4 around the clue. So this is marked off, this is marked in, and the last cell shaded up here will complete this pentomino shape, so it's a T or a Z. I can mark this in. Remember I said that we can't, where we only get 1 of these cells in white, we can't come through this channel, so for connectivity we're going to have to come through this. And that means we're going to take 1 or 2 cells coming down. If we actually look at this, notice we're not going to come down and over to finish this pentomino shape, and also because there are essentially 6 white cells to go, there's going to be 1 more black cell to place, and whichever one it is, we're going to put these 2 in or these 2 in. So let's consider these 2 options. If the V goes into the grid, it marks off both these cells, and then this 4 clue can't get 2 in black. So it must be a T-shape. Again, that makes this 6 clue valid with 6 white around it. It keeps this 4 clue able to be valid. It actually now has 4 black around it and is done. That completes the T-shape in the grid, so this top group is a Z-shape. And we can again update our shape inventory at the bottom to see how we're doing. Looks like we have 6 pentominoes to place and a fair amount of progress so far in the grid. This black singleton is going to take just one more pentomino, one more in white with 2 pentomino shapes around it. And there are a few different shapes this can form, but let's start with maybe marking this cell in white and seeing if we put these in. We can't make a U, we already have a Z, we already have an F, we already have a T. So from the shape inventory, we've got some constraints that look pretty important. There's a W, which would look like this, and that looks possible for right now in the grid. There's a shape like even a U could be possible here, so there's still a little more flexibility, but we're starting to get a little bit of a breakout of the shape over here. Let's come back and maybe think through the shapes around a clue like the 6, and some way to think about that will actually come from marking off some of the possible cells. I think I'll start by marking this cell off and just thinking about it. So again, I'm going to have 2 white and a total of 6 black around this clue. If I mark this off, if I just sketch in what will happen, I can start to form this shape here. Notice it cannot complete to be this L pentomino because I would put too many whites around this. So there's a tension about filling in this cell. And what that means is in this case, we would be starting to put these in. We would have to start to put this shape in and get an N into the grid. And so getting 6 around this clue is going to be tricky if we start to eliminate some of these cells. I'm wondering, though, what is this part of a shape for? It's, as we said, not part of an L. So it looks like it has to be part of a U potentially, but if it's a U, it would be a form like this and would actually isolate a cell when we mark that in. So this is not part of a U. And of the ones that are left, the only shape that still can corner around this is going to be a V shape. So this cell here must be part of a V, and that's going to help us in a few ways. First, we can probably force that V extends over to here. If it didn't, if it did this, we would isolate cell down here. So we can start by marking in this edge, recognize that then we're going to take this cell. This is never used, and so the V is one of these 2 V's. And that will help us do a little bit of filling to the top. It also means that this isn't a V here, this is a Y here, which we'd already thought was possible. Now the Y is for sure in the grid. The V is conceptually placed. And so now we can come back and think about what is really filling this. And we said there's a W option and the U option. Those look like the only 2 left. And that may be helped then by coming to the top here and thinking about this pentomino. So around this one clue, there's going to be 1 blackened cell here or here. And notice that whatever shape this takes is going to join into this shaded cell. So this is going to need something like a 3x3 bounding box. It can't be an L shape. An L shape can't start here and end up here. So can this be a U? No. Can this be an L? No. Can this be an X? Well, with this shape in the grid, it can't. So this has to be a W. So the W is going to be taking cells like this, and we can ask, where does it come up and take a strong connection to the grid? If I took this cell, this would have to turn like this. That's going to isolate things. If I take this cell, not taking this cell, I can come over like this. And this is the only W that still works. Get that out of the grid. I now come back to where this one has to be part of a U. There's no other shape that's going to make it go. An L like this doesn't leave enough space for that blackened cell to do anything. So this is this U. Marking this into the grid. We're now left with an L and an X, and one of them has to be an extension of this space, and one of them has to be a valid pentomino to work through this. So is this part of an L? It's part of an L as part of this L, and then that means this is a V, and these 2 have to join for an X, and that's not going to work. It's not part of any other shape, so it looks like it has to be part of an X. This is the only X it can be a part of. Putting that in puts in this V. We now have this black cell, which is going to be part of a big L, and this is the only L it can go. And so we finished this grid and made all the clues work in this impressively anti-symmetric puzzle. So the start was very focused on these corner and side numbers. The 3s and 4s gave a quick start, gave us N's and P shapes. As we worked through the grid, we got some more hard spots to work with, particularly these 6 clues, which gave us more inroads through the grid. So I think there are some other routes than just the ones highlighted in this video, but this basic going clue by clue, pentomino by pentomino, and controlling the inventory as we went is the right way to get through the statue park puzzle. So hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again soon.